Hey, trader friend, welcome to the Mind Style Forex podcast. I'm Destiny, a funded trader and the host of this podcast. Today I have with me.
Hi guys, it's Ann Phillips here from Music, Mind and Wellbeing. I am a mindset coach. And you know what? It's a privilege to be here alongside Destiny. Got some great things in store for you. Over to you, Destiny.
We have indeed got some amazing conversations in store for you. I'm really excited because these are conversations that I wish I heard during my journey. It's been a few years now since I've been trading, and my goodness, the ups and downs. Listen, I feel you. I've been there. So that's why I decided to start this, because I really, really wanted it to be a space where we can talk about mindset in trading, popularly known as trading psychology. We hear the words trading psychology, trading psychology. Well, here we will demystify it. We're going to talk about the mind, we're going to talk about our emotions, just the makeup, the human makeup, because to really succeed in this game, you have to know yourself. And this is what this podcast is about. So I'm very excited to have you listen in. Thank you for showing up. And I wish you would just press that button to follow us so that we can grow on this journey. And as you listen, if you find any clip or any point helpful, share. I'm new to this, so I'm hoping that you, trader friend, will help me grow in this space. I love that you're here with us.
Well, you know what? It's been amazing, like the conversations that we're having. So diving deeper into the emotional mind, but looking at the whole pendulum, right? As in, let's go from fear to happiness. And
exactly.
What does that mean for that trader? You
tell me. I've just had to ask you what pendulum means because I don't know. I didn't know what you were talking about.
Can you do me a favor before we even really begin the talk? Can you describe to me the general setup for a trader? I just want to understand, are they sitting in a lonely room? And, I just want to see, I want to see their setup because I can literally visualize it as you talk about it.
Okay. So the interesting thing is, obviously we're talking about retail traders, right? As an institutional trader, you have not only the training of a big institution that has the resources to train you, you have access to psychologists, you have access to a medical team on the trading floor, you have access to so much. But not only that, you are not the only person on the trading floor. There are many of you, right? So because there's a few of you, you feed off each other. You're in that environment, the energy is there, you're feeding off each other. You might not even see something and your colleague sees it, but because they're so confident, they're calling it out. You're like, all right, then fine, let me call. You know what I mean? So it's the difference between being in a workplace and working from home. Now, when you're in the office, obviously there are other people there. That's just what I've described an institutional trader to be. When you're a retail trader, for the most part, you are trading by yourself. So if we think of somebody working from home, it's just you and your laptop, computer, phone, whatever. It's just you. You and your thoughts, you and your insecurities, you and your fears, you and whatever you might feel confident with, and you and the training that you have. So if your training about trading has only or almost only been about the strategy, you think that's all you need. But I promise you, strategy is around 20, I would go as far as saying 15% of trading. The rest of it is psychology. And many times when we come into this industry as retail traders, we're told, come and make money, because we see people making a lot of money in a short space of time. And of course, we're appealed, right? But nobody sits you down to train you. And a lot of the courses that you see out there, when I was studying, I paid for 6 different courses. And there was so little on trading psychology, it's ridiculous. Do you know what I mean? So the base material was just like, you have to have the right mindset, and all these cliche things that we say, like follow the plan, the trend is your friend. But if you're new in the industry, you have no clue what that means. And so you just make up your own thing and you try to go along. And so upwards of 75% of people, they study the strategy, then they move to another strategy, then they move to another strategy. So you're constantly chasing, and losing thousands in the process. Because at the start, very few people told you about psychology. And what does that actually mean? This is why I'm excited about this podcast, because we really do go into the mind makeup, the emotional mind that we're going to be discussing today. Because if more of us understood these things at the beginning, then I promise you that number will change. I really believe that. I really do believe that. And so that's
And
why
I believe that for you.
and for the viewers, you know what I mean? So that's why for me, this is a big deal, because if I had this 3 years ago, oh, come on.
Absolutely. So you know what? Now that you've described that landscape for me, I can get into the architecture of where we're going. So
Let's go.
the pendulum of the emotional mind, fear,
Pendulum
all the way to
means
pendulum, the swing, as in the swing, right? The place that we're going from. We're going from the place of fear right the way across to the place of happiness. But we're only today dealing with the ends, the fear and the happiness, because
so nothing
they need to be dealt with. They're two major areas, right? Now listen to this: abandonment, anger,
big word,
anxiety, despair, envy, esteem, mistrust, pride, respect, sadness. All of these things, they're just a few areas of fear. Just a few areas of fear. So when you really think about this, right? Fear in the right of our mind keeps us in that dangerous place. Because if you think about it, most people are going to think about fear as fight or flight, as we discussed in the previous podcast. They're going to think about something that they really dislike, something that they have to get away from. You're in that fear. You're in the, what's the term? Grip of fear. Now, the grip of fear is because when you have something such as fear, it's because you've had we talked about this in the last podcast, the external trigger, that external stimulus. Something has caused that fear, right? Imagine we're walking into a home. We've opened the door. We switch on the light. That is what a trigger is. You've just switched something on. So if you've switched on fear, you've switched on the stimulus. And because of all those chemicals that are running around you, it's as simple as a case of you can be gripped and held in the place of fear in the wrong way, because it's either going to hinder you or help you, and we're going to come to that, right? Okay. So we've got this external trigger going on, and what happens is when it comes in, we talked about this. Please go back and watch the last podcast, because it comes in as an emotion. As it's processing, it goes to another certain part of the brain, and the brain goes, what happened? Literally, the brain is asking what happens, microseconds. And then it's going forward and saying, I need to now process this. I now need to make this work, right? So it's moved through those 3 areas and it's coming to this particular point. It's when we get to the processing of the fear that we can either have rational or irrational thoughts.
Irrational being emotional?
Oh gosh, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. They can be those emotional thoughts, those triggers that take us, you know, when you've processed it and you've got to that point of what happened, it could be that you've held on to it so emotionally that you've actually created a really strong memory, even before you processed it. Right, I can see you doing what a lot of people do. They instantly think about, hold on a second. Right, think of something that evoked an emotion, and I'm not saying an emotion of fear, but something that you know you can conjure up and sort of your body starts to do whatever it does. Yeah, exactly. Yes. You don't need to tell, you do not need to tell me. You just don't. You just don't need to tell me. But it's there, right? Now, the rational and the irrational fear, they can be classed as like phobias. Because some people have a phobia, and I'm not going to name them, guys. It's okay. I don't want anybody switching off. I'm just going to say a phobia of insects, animals, people, places,
losing money,
things.
Losing money.
Yeah.
Losing money.
Okay, so we're going to say it again. Losing money, losing money, losing money.
Yes, also being wrong.
Yeah.
A lot of people cannot take being wrong. And when you look at the way we've been trained in society, school trains us to be correct. You get rewarded for giving the right answer. Every year in the school process, right? So then you come to trading and you're so scared to be wrong that it grips you, as you're saying. You can't even make a decision because you're so paralyzed by the idea of being wrong. And that's something to deal with, for example, right? If you don't deal with that, listen.
It really, you know what, it really is, because that's part of the reward system, right? And this is the thing that we were saying, like, whether it's people, places, things, animals, insects, that level of phobia can grip people. It can be your hindrance or it can be your help, because we all have built-in fears.
Yeah.
A baby is born with a built-in fear of detachment. Heard the mother's voice all the time. If you do that to a baby, gently, even in your arms, gently drop them down, they startle because it's not known to them. It's that innate fear. Why? I'll say it one more time. It's the combination of chemicals that cause us on one part of our nervous system to have the fight or flight, right? So there you are looking at your screen. Some money's going up, some money's coming down. Your fear is either going to help you or hinder you. If it hinders you, it's because it's in the irrational and you've been gripped.
Wow.
If it helps you, it sets you free. Now, if you're in the hindrance area, right, and you're gripped by stress, anxiety, there can be underlying depression.
Absolutely.
That is running through that, you know, may not be aware of, but it's an irrational thought process that underlines all of that. I heard a wonderful joke, and it's just one of the things that, you know, can be said in psychology, is the fact that the people with the most intense mental health issues tend to study psychology in the brain. And of course we do. Absolutely. We want to know what's going on, right? We'll spend years in therapy just to know what's going on. But as a helper as well, what do you think that fear does to help you? What do you think, Destiny?
Do better, I suppose. I mean, if we're talking about swings, if one end is negative, the other end must be positive, right?
Right. So if it's positive, it's going to help you. A fear is going to say, I've got to drive. I've got to create. I've got to go on. I've got to do more. I've got to focus. I've got to be efficient.
I think for me, that's the... Go on.
No. So when we're putting it in the money sense, remember, making money, losing money. If someone sees that money going down and they're in the place of being gripped by fear, that's where the trigger coming into the room, switch on the light, bam, trigger. But it's a negative trigger. Or someone comes in the room, switches on the light, and it is the positive trigger. It just depends on where our fear, the original root of fear, came from.
That's good. So to deal with this, what you're saying is we have to dig in deep enough to find the origin of that fear?
Absolutely, because when a fear comes up and something literally causes you to be fearful, in a survival situation, of course, you're in your rational mind to have fear because your life is in danger. Is your life in danger if you're losing a £50,000 deal?
I promise you it's not.
Right.
It's not in danger. But the thing is, for the average person coming in, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
That is a lot of money. So, of course, when you're faced with that and you think it's a lot of money, that will determine your reaction, right? Again, how you think, what you're thinking. But if you see 50K as, for example, your average daily loss or like your daily risk, then you just lost one trade. You move on to the next one.
Exactly.
But this for me is fascinating because it takes training. It takes training. And so for me, as you were talking about fear, I was thinking about what's my fear? Like what's my, when I'm trading, when I've had losing streaks, winning streaks, and just all of it, what is my biggest fear? And I think one of my biggest fears is that the fear of, I don't even know how to put it without, the way I was thinking about it was, I don't fear losing a trade. I fear losing in life.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So, of course, I have my own definition for what losing in life means, and it involves, things like being a mom, the kind of example I set for my children. So that fear for me is bigger than losing £50,000. I promise you it is. So I take the loss of money because I know I can make the money again. It's not a big deal. Now, it hasn't always been like this, right? It took training, years of training. I had to look at what is my personality with money like? How do I feel about money? Do I think that 1 year's wages is going to kill me? Absolutely not. It's not going to kill me, right? But only because now I'm thinking this way. But at first,
it took time.
About 5,000. Yeah, it did take time. And this is why professional traders, like the friends that I know who consistently make profits in trading, it irritates them that somebody started trading and in 2 months they want to be a millionaire. How? Or in 5 months, they're like, oh, I tried, it's not working, I'm giving up. Really? You went to school for decades and then you want to give up in less than 6 months? Please get out of here.
Exactly. But you see, this is the whole thing, right? And that is this mere fact that when we're going through that fear and they're winning and they're losing at the same time, different things going on. How are you feeling? You've literally just said it. You have to work through it. So you have to self-assess in that moment. How am I feeling about this? Why? Hold on a second. Hold on. Why am I feeling this? I'm actually frustrated. I'm angry. I'm feeling desperate. I'm feeling sadness. Okay. I'm now in the irrational. And then we're going to talk about this as we do our checklist, right? How you have to come back into reality and the positive, into reality. You're experiencing something, but your chemical reaction inside you is causing a reaction, a continual reaction throughout your nervous system that's causing you to think and act in a specific way.
And you know what's interesting? Sorry, I was just thinking the way that your feelings are making you act may not be in line with your trading plan. That's where a lot of us get in trouble.
That is exactly it.
Because before you began to feel this way, excuse me, before you began to feel this way, you already had a plan of what you would do.
Yeah.
So because you had a plan, all you had to do was follow the plan, come back to reality. The reality is, this is my plan, I'm following the plan. But because your emotions have taken you somewhere crazy, like to 12 years ago.
When you start learning something new, mistakes are normal. It's pardonable because, of course, it's new. It's something you haven't done before. When you keep making the same mistakes, we might have to come and get you to safety because you're no longer new. How long does it take for a child to learn how to walk? Every child is different, right? In that same vein, every Forex trader is different. Now, to fast track your learning process, I've made a video that talks about the 7 biggest mistakes that Forex traders make. Check out the video in the link below. And let's get back to this discussion.
Or to the last time you lost a trade of major, that that can paralyze you. That can be traumatic.
Yeah.
And so it really does take a lot of quietness of mind I've seen or I've experienced to be able to say, okay, what is this I'm feeling now? Where did this come from?
Right.
And
exactly.
Meditation and getting a coach has been huge help.
That's exactly, having mindset coach. That's exactly what I do, and literally walk you through different steps. Now we're just going to go on to the flip side because we've been dealing with fear for quite some time. So I want to go right the way, swing the pendulum to the other side, and let's go to happiness. Right? What is happiness?
That's where I live.
Right, there you go. Do you know?
I try to live there most of the time.
I think the majority of people try to live there most of the time. Do you know the pursuit of happiness is the number one greatest motivator as a human being for us? That pursuit of really having joy in our lives. You know, that I want to be happy for my family. I want to do. We don't call it generally happiness. We're going to get round to that, but it is the pursuit of happiness. We all want to be happy.
Absolutely.
And some people have children, husband, wife, whatever, that external factors of being happy. Other people are just for themselves. I want to be happy. I want to experience this level of joy. Because we all want that sense of satisfaction. And I alluded to it earlier, peace and joy. If your peace is withdrawn, you're not as joyous. Right?
Right.
So, I want to trick your brain into doing something for me right now. Because, we'll get around to that. Hold on. as the combination of hormones, right, are surging around your body, as we've described before when we came to sadness, it can cause you to be happy. It can cause you to feel good. Suddenly your skin is looking radiant. Suddenly you're feeling more excited. Even your focus is better. Your self-esteem is higher. Your confidence is showing through. So in all of that, when you're feeling sad, and I asked you already, fearful, right? Think of something that has made you feel fearful.
Right.
Right? Exactly. So it's so funny how we suddenly just go make this face. But I want you right now to think of something or look on your phone at something that just brings you pure joy. And when I say pure joy, I'm talking about you can feel it. Every part of your body is now tingling, is alive. It's literally like some people would say, oh my God, I'm in love. You know, that feeling. Right? Okay. The left side of the brain is responding to the happiness, whereas the right side was responding to the sadness. But it's actually the front that was responding to the happiness and the sadness. So choose something different to think about that maybe while you've been trading has just made you really smile. In the last 3 years, while you've been trading, has just brought pure joy to you.
No, I've been trading for 7.
Sorry.
It's been making sense.
Making sense for 3, I forget. Sorry, wrong way around. But
it's coming up to 8 and 4 now. But
yeah.
okay. Actually 8 and 3. So there's this guy who I learnt a lot from, and he used to say, while you're in a trade, don't think. While you're in a trade, don't think.
Why?
And I understand what he's trying. No, because you can get, you get the danger of all these different thoughts coming. Which one are you going to listen to, or all the different emotions coming up? But I used to think, how are you not supposed to think? I'm created to think. How do I not think? But then I understood later on what he was trying to say. If you're like, just stick to the plan, regardless of what comes up in your mind, what comes up in your emotions. That's why I understand that he was trying to say. But at the time, I used to be like, don't think. Easy for you to say, don't think. You make 10K a day. Don't think.
Yeah. But you see, the thing is,
I understand what he was saying.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fine. And that's the most important thing. So you've got something while you were thinking about while you're trading that has made you happy. And has made you have that glowy feeling. And it's wonderful. But when you think of the fearful side, you can now start making a compare and contrast table of, hold on, I was fearful when I did this trade last week, but this trade brought me joy. Hold on a second. I need to understand what's going on. Now,
this is why having a trading plan and a trading journal is your friend. I promise you.
Yeah, definitely. I believe in journals.
You're documenting these things. You're documenting the feelings, all the different things that come up, how it made you feel, and all that kind of stuff. So that because you're thinking about it, you're living it again, right? In a more calm state. When the trade is over, you journaling it causes you to go back and assess. And that self-assessment, I think, is what a lot of us don't do. Just think about the natural flow of life. We're not trained. Who trains you to self-assess? Did you learn it in school?
Right.
Go on.
Sorry, no. Who trains you? Who trains you to self-assess? We actually do something ourselves. We rehearse. We literally rehearse for ourselves. We're not self-assessing, but we're rehearsing. We're rehearsing that fear. In other words, we're playing it over and over and over again. Or we're playing that happiness over and over and over and over again. But we're never actually stopping and saying, why was I feeling that way? Why was I feeling that way? So a trading journal, like any journal,
come from?
Yeah, you know, it's one of those things that we're not taught in school to be self-aware, but now we're here. And this is what we're doing on this podcast. We're really helping you to be self-aware. Do you know, there's something regarding, say, like a financial increase when it happens in our lives, right? The pursuit of happiness, happier people are statistically wealthier people. Statistically.
Oh, yeah.
And the reason being, it's not the car, the house, the this, the that. It's not the possessions. Wealth gives you more options.
Oh, that part.
It just gives you more options. You can help your family, your friends. You can do things. It just gives you.
You can help yourself.
Thank you. And that's what I was waiting for. You can help yourself. It is one way of having more options. So when you have more self-esteem, more confidence, and you're on that stairway of going upwards towards pursuing happiness, you're going to be able to create the wealth. So when there's a loss that comes, you're still on pursuit of happiness, but you knew it was going to come at some point. When the downturn hits.
It does hit. And sometimes we act like we forgot that it can hit. But yeah, it hits and it does shock the system. So what you're saying, it reminds me of being on the journey to self-actualization.
Yes, it is. And that is what the awake journey is all about. You're actually going to, as we talked about that aha moment, you're on that journey to self-actualization, because there has to be an epiphany at some point. But I'm doing this and I'm in the middle of this. This is fantastic. That downtime has come. Okay, let me deal with that. You don't have to go to the place of frustration, sadness, complete depression, and other things. We can deal with that before. If there was a chemical imbalance that has caused something like depression, we do not ignore that. We actually go and get medication that will be able to help that person in that environment. However, it is stated that somebody who is chemically imbalanced like that shouldn't do, say, like demanding, high risk, high stressful positions such as something like that, because the resiliency has to be built up over time. So when we did Trick the Brain, and Trick the Brain was think of something that makes you happy, or look at something that makes you happy. So in the middle of a trade, something's going up, something else is coming down. You're starting to feel that something's not right in you. Coping mechanism. We did it last time, but we're going to use a different one this time. We're going to trick the brain. We are going to look at our phones, or we're going to think about something right in that moment that is going to bring you that joy, that feeling of complete and utter surrounded by love, because your brain does not know what is real. So think about it and cause that reality that you need to have happen, cause it to happen. Make it real. Make it real for you right in that moment. And then when you're feeling that surrounded by that love, that emotion of happiness, you're in a better place to think clearer and rationally.
Yeah.
And it's you know, it's a big thing. But finally, I have to say, on the happiness trait, a lot of people don't think about this, that it's something to think about. Temperature. You're in a room, deals are going on, you're at home, middle of winter, you put the fire on, it's crackling away, suddenly everything's going down, but that room is hot. You're going to start feeling hot, clammy, frustrated, because all you want to do is cool down. If it's too cold, you're not going to be able to focus. Now, it makes you smile straight away, me talking about that, right? But the thing is,
because it's true.
It's
and
real.
we do not think about it. Yeah.
No. None of us really do. What is your work environment like? I know I'm talking about the temperature, but you have to also remember the pendulum, the emotion. You don't want to live in fear. You do want to pursue happiness. And if you do want to pursue happiness, create the environment you want to work in.
Come on.
I mean, you know, for instance, right? This particular studio, I've only been in this place a few days, and I know I need to set up all the lights, but we're still recording because I'm happy in the environment. The environment's good for me. I just need to add on the bits that's going to make it much more clearer and things like that. That just takes a moment of time to do. And, you know, obviously I will do that. But it's very much a case of think about these things, guys. It's not just
the
pendulum. It's things like your environment, the temperature, all of that. So we're just going to go through a couple of checklists, right? So what were you going to say?
Before we do, I was just going to say, it's interesting because I'm really grateful for my journey because through reading books, listening to messages, just learning and growing, obviously, I began to realize certain things. So as you're talking about environment, I'm just like, oh my gosh, it's so big. I'm very particular about how my home is laid out or how there has to be order. Do you know what I mean? And if the energy in my environment is off, it doesn't take me long to notice that. It does not take me long. And that I noticed that has really heightened because I've been digging deeper.
Yeah.
Digging deeper. Do you know what I mean? And I even went back as far as 10, 15 years ago and looked at when I was in this environment, how was I? How did I operate? When I'm in this environment, you know what I mean? And so that's why you just have to keep growing. Honestly,
Absolutely.
you just have to keep growing because you're like, I was listening to this guy who was talking about environment trumps will all the time.
All day, every day.
Long run, you know what I mean? It trumps your will. Like, forget your will. There's something about the elephants and the ants. Do you know about that?
Yeah.
So the elephant is your subconscious mind, and the ant is your will. This is why New Year's resolutions don't work.
Exactly. Go ahead and eat the frog, because seriously, you could say 1 minute, and then within 21 days, people have failed. Yeah.
It's so true that it's just.
Yeah.
Oh, please.
And this is why. This is why when it comes to the checklist, guys, seriously. Okay, so I know we just briefly touched on the elephant and the ants, but are you checking your habits? So did you set your room up if you're working from home? Did you have time to set your room up the night before? So everything is where you need.
We have the time, and we just don't make it because we don't
Right.
think it's important. We diminish the importance of these things, and oh my gosh, like living intentionally, you have to be intentional about it. So you have to make the time to make
That's
sure
right.
your environment is how it needs to be. And if you don't know yourself, you don't even know what environment you want. You don't know what environment is good for you. You don't understand. Some of us are not even aware that we have to check our habits. Something as little as that.
Exactly.
Trading will
And the thing
make
is,
you
you will know your habits if one night, right? This seems like the most idiosyncratic thing, but take a notebook and a pen, and literally, you've come in. Say you were trading at work, right? So you've come in, you've kicked your shoes off, right, at the door, in whatever, right, shoes off, right? You go to the kitchen, back in the room. You're writing out all these things that you're doing. You'll be surprised what you do, right? That's just one night. Now, 2 or 3 nights later, look through as you're walking in and see how many, when you've done all what you need to do, and see how many of those things have reoccurred. You'll be surprised how many things you actually do in the same order, especially, say, around the bedtime, right? The brushing of the teeth or the shower or whatever, it will happen in a specific order. People just like that particular order. It might have been something they were shown as a child and they've grown up with.
Yeah.
But they didn't realise that somewhere in there's something that could actually be hindering you. Because it's like the clothes were, okay, came in, they changed, they scattered, and they didn't prep for like the gym the next morning. My sneakers, trainers are always in my bag, and do you know what I mean? It's like I'm ready to go. Like, get up. I don't have to think about that. It's like it's all there. But if you didn't prep for certain things, why? So we need to check our habits. That is the number one. Are you checking your habits? Are they causing you to swing between fear and the pursuit of happiness? We all have goals.
Don't we? Yeah. I think on that note, we're going to end this episode here because my mind is just like, this is, for me, having these conversations a lot because sometimes it helps me realize that I was doing the right thing. Do you know what I mean? That I wasn't.
That's right.
That people around me may not understand what I'm doing, but it's okay. It was given to me to understand, right? Not to. So yeah, it's interesting, and I think it's sad actually that in society we don't, like, in terms of going to school, sometimes our parents don't know, so they don't teach us.
But one of the things I'm going to say just there, because I have to add this in, you said when the parents don't teach us. Everybody, anyone watching, please understand this. Your parents did the best they could with what they had at the time that they could. They made the best decisions they could make with that information they had at that time. So whether they were completely poor and, mistreated you, in their minds, they were doing the best that they could at the time.
I think that's,
unless there really was an illness there.
I think that's going to set someone free.
I really hope so, because you will start to look deeper at that. Because I know one person, when we had discussed that, And she used to just go around saying they made the best decision they could at the time. And she kept on saying it for about 6 months. It set her, her sisters, her brother free from the way they were. And how they are now to how they were, they're so loving towards their parents. Whereas they really weren't before.
Wow,
They resented. They were in the place of fear, the resentment, the grip, oh, how could they be like that when I was a child? Did they not? They did what they could.
They didn't know.
With the best they had
Yeah.
at the time. But we know. So let's get to self-development.
Come on.
And understanding ourselves.
And I think
all the links are down there.
Exactly. Come on, Anne. All the links are down there.
Thank you for listening till the end, trader friend. Join us again next week for another amazing conversation.